Greetings, time for another video. This one was one I had in my mind and in answer to a request as much as anything else. The timing, like so many of these things, it's a synchronization moment. This is about how to talk to your spirit guide or spirit guides. Now, I was shown this method, I was just sitting thinking how long ago it was, probably about 32 years ago I should think. So the first thing to do, now I would seriously recommend that you are in a seated position, not laying down, because it's very easy to fall asleep because you could be too relaxed. So I would pick an upright chair, and then you start off, if you get your breathing nice and calm, clear your mind of any stresses and worries in this 3D distraction world, and then start doing some exercises. Start with your feet and flex the muscles, say 3 times or even 10 times. Start with your toes and then work up the body, and then you will feel relaxed just by doing that in itself. Maybe even try just doing that to start with, without even going any further. Then when you feel you're at a stage where you're comfortable with doing that, this is almost like a sort of an exercise you can take part in as I speak. So clear your mind from any distractions, switch off your internet, switch off anything else, lock yourself away in a room for this one. Now, what you're going to do, in your mind, you picture a doorway. Now, you can create that door in any form or shape you want. I'm not going to suggest anything because that then puts a thought into your mind. But you can have any shape door you want. You entirely create this yourself in your mind. Then, once you've created your door and the door frame, visualize a key so you can unlock that door. Now, you open the door and you walk in. Now you start creating a room. This is your safe house, and you declare that this is the only place that you will communicate, and you will only communicate with your spirit guide or spirit guides. Nothing else will come through. Just purely you're there with your guide. And again, with this room, you can furnish it in any way you wish, right down to the texture of the walls. That is entirely your creation. And again, I'm not going to give any clues as to what to put in it. That is entirely up to you. You could even put a second door in that leads out somewhere else, but more about that another time. So once you've got this visualization, this creation in your mind of this safe room where you're going to talk to your guide. Now this is the fun part. And this is in some ways the hardest part of all. I want you to picture a traffic light in your mind. So you see it roughly where your third eye is. Now, this traffic light will work just like a traffic light. It'll be red for no, green for yes, and amber for not sure. Now you ask first off, you ask a question, something really simple. Is the Pope Catholic? And you visualize in your mind changing that light from red to green. That's the easy part. Now, maybe do that with a couple of questions, but you know in your own mind you can actually do that anyway. Now this is the tricky part. You let go of control of that traffic light and now ask any question you want. When you see that traffic light change colour, and it is not from your own mind, that is when you know you have made the connection with your spirit guide. That, shall we say, is as simple as it goes to explain this. Now, part of this process as well, you can visualize your crown chakra like a lotus flower opening up. But equally important with all of this, when you have finished talking to your guide, make sure you close down. Make sure when you come out of your room, you lock the door, because nothing else is going to get into that safe place. That is purely yours. And if you do like I've done, I've gone out the other door and I've gone astral planing. Go for a little tour round. Keep your guide with you all the time though. Your guide will stay with you anyway. Sorry about that. Yeah, so, right. So we'll just quickly recap again. You picture, you do your exercises and you get yourself nice and in a calm and relaxed state. You leave all the worries behind. And then you visualize a door. You unlock that door, you go into your room, you create the room in any way you want. You declare that is you will only talk to your guide in that room and nothing else will be allowed to come through. That is very important to do because you don't want just anything to come through. This is the trouble. People who play games with things like the Ouija board, they ask the silly question of, is anybody or anything there? And they are inviting anything to come through. It is very important to not do that because the dark side is all about deception. So something that might appear as, say, a relative or an ancestor. You might think you're actually talking to an ancestor, but they will trick you. And it is very important that you don't want to fall for these traps because the spiritual energy is as real as anything in the physical. And even in the physical, you can feel, you can physically feel these things if it's allowed to run wild like that. So it is very important to, you are in control of this. It is a creation in your mind of a room, a safe room, and you lay down the law on what you want. You create what you want in that room. I can't emphasize this enough. That's basically it. I hope that will help some of you. That was the way I was taught to do it, and I must admit I don't often go in the room these days. It's I sort of moved beyond that phase where it's like the remote writing. There was a time where it was like a bad parachute jump where your soul doesn't sort of line up with the body, and then it takes a couple of days to get yourself sort of fully back in your body, and you sort of land with a jump when you come back down again. And it gets easier. It's like everything. The more you practice, the easier it gets, and then it just becomes second nature. I would say cast your mind back and think about when you first started to walk. I mean, nobody even thinks about actually walking. It's just something you do. Your body just functions. You don't think about breathing in or out. It just happens. The conscious mind doesn't even need to worry about that. It just happens, same as your heart. It will keep beating from the moment of your inception till the time that the carbon body shell dies or decays. And that heart will not stop. But you don't have to have anything to actually do with the running of it. It just basically goes on an autopilot. These human shells, these meat suits, are quite amazing, really. And there is absolutely nothing about the human body that is, what's the word I'm looking for? It's not junk, it's not accidental, it is all there for a reason. And everything within the human body is a direct, from the same blueprint as everything else. There is only a 2% difference between the DNA of everything in this 3D reality. And if you start seeing things in that way, even a pebble on a beach, and think that it's a different form of consciousness at a different level. I don't like to say lower level because that's been sort of judgmental on it. But it's a different level of consciousness, but it is the same blueprint. The universe, this earth, everything has this same design, and the human body is no different. This is why I've got this hair and I don't cut it. There's a very sound reason for it. And there's a big clue in what I've just said there, a sound reason, a sound mind, because sound is vibration. That is the start of creation. And this is why we have to be very careful what we say as well. Words always have two meanings. People talk about the system. Now think about that word. It's actually two words, stem. You see? It just depends how you say it. But we're only taught in this education program of one way of saying a word. But when I first started to see this pattern with words, it's like, oh, that's a coincidence. But then it's like, hang on a minute, these are too many coincidences. This is not a coincidence. Hence, I made the video a while ago called the alphabet, because it is a gamble. But we have in this dormant DNA, or this junk DNA as it's called, this 95 or 97% within us, it's not there without a reason. It will activate. Some of you will, especially now we've entered this new year after this last moon. This is the start of the year. You can physically see it, you can see it in the physical world how everything is starting to flourish and bloom, and new life is coming along. And the days are getting lighter as well, which is lovely, and hopefully more sunshine, because that is always good to top up your energy levels. The sun is the life giver. You've only got to look at nature, and we're no different. We are part of nature. Bit of a heavy subject, and I've been talking now for 12 minutes, so there's, I think, plenty on this one. I like to keep these videos reasonably short, so as I've said before, this is a spiritual meal, or a meal, food for the soul, food for thought. And just like the physical meal that you eat, it takes time to digest. So this is why I like to do these small videos. So I will leave it there, and I wish you all well, and keep practicing. The first few times you might think, oh, I can't do this, but it will come. It's like everything. Learning to drive a car, the first few times it might be awful, and then you'll go through phases where you think, well, I did that better on the last driver lesson, why have I gone crap? It's because you're going through a process of learning, and you're picking up new skills as you go. When you first start learning to drive a car, you learn the coordination of the gears and the clutch, and controlling the car, and obviously very important, learning how to stop it and control the vehicle. And then you start moving on to doing reverse parking or reversing round corners, and it should hopefully get to the stage where you can think, well, I know I can get through that gap safely. Your perception, I've always said with driving, for example, in the UK, your right shoulder is a lot shorter than your left shoulder. You've got a lot more over to your left. If it's in the United States, we're in a left-hand drive vehicle, then obviously your right shoulder has got a... But the body shell of the vehicle then becomes an extension of your own body, and you don't want to damage it by... I mean, you don't walk through doorways and smash your shoulder into the wall, and it's the same with everything. And again, you don't want to be sort of walking in, visualizing this doorway into your safe room and hitting the door frame. But yeah, just keep practicing and it will come. So I'll leave that there, and another video coming soon. Thank you.